Thank you, Bruce. That was beautiful. I have a nagging regret that I wasn't always a good mother. For example, I forced our 3 young daughters to attend religious school every Saturday morning for 3 years. They had to give up sleeping late and having fun on their day off. The religious classes went from 9 a.m. to noon every Saturday during the school year. And what made it worse, and this is my regret, that I was having serious doubts about the very religion that I was expected our daughters to absorb. I hadn't attended Mass anymore, and I was struggling to reconcile this religion of my youth to my adult questioning of dogma. So when the Saturday religion teacher asked the students who went to Mass with their parents last Sunday, my kids were the only ones with their hands on their laps. Yes, I do regret making them learn about a religion I no longer believed in. And here's another example of a nagging regret that I have. A regret that I wasn't a good enough daughter. When my mother was 93 years old, she was living with a full-time care worker at a retirement center in the Chicago area. She loved it. When I would come and visit her, I'd be coming in from North Carolina, where I lived at the time, to visit and to take her to her favorite place, the grocery store. In her younger days, my mom was a terrific cook. At the grocery store, she was an expert at picking out just the freshest and most nutritious foods. She could spot the freshest cabbage for her gołąbki, just the right brand of sauerkraut for her pierogi. In her younger days, she was an efficient and savvy shopper. So when I made the 13-hour trip to visit her in Chicago, she would always ask to go to the grocery store, even though she didn't cook anymore. I thought it was strange. At the grocery store, though, she would zero in and pick up the reddest, roundest tomato and become deep in thought. She would just dwell on that tomato, almost like a meditation. 15 seconds later, I'd say, "Mom, are you going to buy that tomato?" "No," she would say, "I'm just looking." "Okay, Mom, we have to keep moving. It's getting late." But she'd continue to observe the oranges and the apples in the same way. I'd look at my watch and say, "Mom, we've got to get moving. It's getting late." I regret not giving her the time to really enjoy her shopping trip and the moments when she just wanted to reminisce and enjoy the beauty of the produce. I'm sure every one of us has regrets, yet every morning, every day, we leave our houses and we decide what we'll bring with us in our virtual backpacks. Just what will we carry out of the doors and onto our shoulders? How much integrity? How much compassion? How much anger? How many regrets? We pack these with our lunch and our date book. Yes, some of us still use date books, but it's especially the regrets that weigh us down. We walk out the door wearing our history, including our regrets. It's comforting in a way to know that everyone has regrets. The experts say that it's a universal occurrence. We all have our moments that we wished never had happened, things we have done or not done, and now we regret. That heaviness that we carry on our shoulders can weigh us down and even influence our actions for a day, a week, a lifetime. To make peace with our past and live a fuller, happier life, I invite you to look at what regrets are all about, and let's ask ourselves, why do we carry the baggage of the past around with us? How does regret affect our lives? And how do we lighten our backpacks? How do we take regrets out of our virtual backpacks? So let's take a look at it. Regret is a feeling of disappointment over the wish that something we did or did not do, something we said or did not say in the past that could have been different. The language of regret goes like this: I wish I coulda, woulda, shoulda. It often comes with a kind of helplessness because we cannot change the past, and we do not know what to do with this feeling of dissatisfaction in the present. We all carry around a lot of negativity in our backpacks. It's the result of unmet expectations, losses, failures, lost loves, frustrated ambitions. And it could even be the critical words of many teachers or religious leaders gnawing at our hearts still. It's the wishful thinking that the future might have been different if only we had made a different choice in the past. So why then do we carry this baggage of the past with us? Those who study regret note that regret occurs virtually among all ages and cultures. Dr. Neil Rose, a psychology professor at Northwestern University, says this about regret: it's just the way our brains work. We humans have the ability to imagine different outcomes. Therefore, humans, unlike animals, have regrets. How does it affect our lives? Professor Kim Penn, a behavioral scientist at the University of Virginia, says, if regret lingers without some sort of resolution, it can stop us from moving forward with our lives. She goes on to say that regret may lead to a bias in one's decision-making that can result in making poor life choices. It's the actions that we choose based on the emotion of regret that can make a difference in our long-term well-being. For me, it's my feeling that I wasn't a good enough mother and I wasn't a good enough daughter. Regrets like these lower my self-esteem and my self-confidence. So how do we take regrets out of our backpacks? As with other negative emotions, it doesn't work to avoid, deny, or try to squash our regrets. In the long run, these tactics only prolong the time we suffer with them. Rather than stay stuck, we can manage these emotions first by showing self-compassion and forgiving ourselves. Showing compassion to ourselves means reminding ourselves that we are only human. We try to do the best we can, and sometimes we just don't live up to our ideal self. If we can forgive ourselves for just being human and making mistakes, we can move on to a better self-concept. By facing our humanness and having the courage to admit that we were wrong, asking for forgiveness from others, and then forgiving ourselves, we can take the sting out of regret and move on. They say that the study of regrets should be called anthropology. For example, I asked myself, why did I force my daughters to attend religious school, while at the same time I myself was questioning the very dogma that they were being forced to learn? I've thought a lot about it, and in truth, at that time, I didn't know what the right thing to do. I was having real doubts about this religion of my youth, but I felt it was my duty as a parent to provide my children with a religious background. I felt I couldn't deprive my children of religion, even though I was questioning the very religion. In order to get past this regret that I felt over the years, I decided to face my blunder and ask my daughters directly to forgive my mistake. I told them that I was so confused at that time about religion, and now I wish I had made a different decision and not have forced the religious school on them. I apologized to my daughters and explained the conundrum that I was in at that time. Of course, they forgave me, and we did come to a mutual understanding and a deeper love. I can now look back at my I shoulda, coulda, woulda with more understanding and compassion for myself. I still remember the experience, but now without the guilt and sadness. I accept the fact that I'm not perfect. Every single person on earth makes mistakes, and that's how we learn and grow. Another way to take regrets out of our backpack is by understanding that our circumstances in life at that time often influence our decisions. It's the ability to recognize and to understand that we made decisions based on the values and the information that we had at that time. For example, let's take the story I told you in the beginning about the impatience with my mother at the grocery store. I see now that we were at two different stages in our lives. My mom had all the time in the world to enjoy an outing where she could spend time enjoying the moment, absorbing the beauty of the redness of a tomato or the curves and shine of a delicious apple. She had the time to reminisce. However, at that time, I was in a totally different stage in my life. I was busy. I had a full-time job, family responsibilities, the challenges of traveling from North Carolina to Chicago. How I wish I could have appreciated where she was in her life. Of course, my mom has been gone for a number of years now, and I can no longer talk to her and say, I'm sorry for rushing you, for not appreciating what you are feeling. But for me, just the realization that now I understand we were at two different stages in our lives, and how I wish I had a more gracious understanding and different attitude at the time. This realization has made me less sad about this regret. I still remember the time, but I remind myself that the circumstances in life often get in the way of making better decisions. And so, when we can accept that by our very humanness, and that because we are cognitive creatures, we will always have regrets. We will always imagine that it could have been different if only. But it's important for us to realize that sometimes these regrets can hold us back from developing into the whole beautiful people that we are. In order to evolve and develop as individuals, we need to resolve our regrets. We need to lighten our load by taking the regrets out of our backpacks. When we can ask forgiveness from others and then forgive ourselves and show compassion to ourselves, then can we take the sting out of our regrets. We can overcome our regrets when we accept that our circumstances in life often create situations where it's impossible to have known the right course of action at the time. We grow emotionally and spiritually when we face our regrets. Making peace with our past is a way to living fully in the present. Someone once said, "Life is not about perfection, but about evolution." The fact is that we are all human, that we make mistakes, but we are ready to grow and evolve. We need to experience this life, and that means both the good and the bad. Accept the challenges life offers as lessons that we need in order to grow. Forgive ourselves for the past, accept it, and start living a fuller life.